The brown envelope landed on the breakfast table with a thud that seemed to echo through our kitchen. Marcus slid it toward me without a word, his jaw set in that way I'd learned to recognize over 10 years of marriage. Inside were 2 DNA test kits. I stared at the labels, each bearing one of our children's names, Olivia, age 8, and Tyler, age 6. My hands trembled as I looked up at my husband. "What is this?" I whispered. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "I just want to be sure, that's all," he said flatly, like he was discussing a grocery list. The words hit me like a physical blow. After a decade of devotion, of sacrificing my career dreams to support his business, of building a home filled with love and laughter, he was questioning whether our children were even his. Tears blurred my vision as Olivia walked into the kitchen asking for her cereal. I quickly wiped my face, forcing a smile I didn't feel. Marcus turned away, leaving me frozen at that table, holding evidence of his distrust in my shaking hands. "Where is this coming from?" I demanded that evening after the children were asleep. Marcus sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, barely acknowledging my presence. "People talk, Nicole," he said without looking up. "A man has a right to know for sure." People talk. The words echoed in my mind. What people? Who had been whispering poison into his ear? I'd been faithful every single day of our marriage, turning down advances, avoiding situations that could even hint at impropriety. "What people, Marcus?" I pressed, my voice rising. "Tell me who's been saying things about me." He finally looked at me, his eyes cold. "Does it matter? No man wants to raise another man's kids. I'm just being smart." Smart. He called doubting me smart. I felt something crack inside my chest, like the foundation of everything we'd built together was crumbling. That night, I lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, wondering when my husband had become a stranger. The tension hung over our home like thick fog. Marcus barely spoke to me, barely looked at the children. At dinner the next evening, Tyler knocked over his milk and immediately started crying. "It's okay, baby," I soothed, reaching for paper towels. Marcus just stood up and walked away from the table. Olivia's small voice broke the silence. "Daddy, are you angry at Mommy?" He paused in the doorway, his back to us, then left without answering. I watched my daughter's face crumble with confusion, and rage flared in my chest. Whatever was happening between Marcus and me, our children didn't deserve this coldness. That night, after tucking them into bed with extra hugs and whispered reassurances, I sat alone in our bedroom and let myself cry. I cried for the marriage I thought we had, for the trust that had somehow evaporated, for the sacrifices I'd made that apparently meant nothing. Tomorrow, I promised myself, I would find out who was behind this. The whispers started immediately. I noticed it when I took Olivia to school the next morning. 2 mothers at the gate stopped talking the moment they saw me, their eyes following me with barely concealed curiosity. At the grocery store that afternoon, Mrs. Patterson from down the street gave me a pitying look before quickly turning away. By evening, I was certain the entire neighborhood knew about Marcus's accusation. "That's her," I heard someone whisper behind me at the pharmacy. "The one whose husband thinks those kids aren't his." Heat flooded my face as I grabbed my prescription and fled. The humiliation burned through me like acid, but beneath it, something harder was forming. Someone had started these rumors deliberately, and I was going to find out who. I started making mental notes of everyone who knew us well enough to cause this kind of damage, everyone who might have a reason to destroy my marriage. The call from my friend Brenda came during my lunch break at work. "Nicole, I need to tell you something," she said carefully. "Marcus has been talking to someone about this whole DNA thing. Getting advice." My stomach dropped. "Who?" "Vanessa Phillips. You know, his ex from college. She works in his building now." The name hit me like ice water. Vanessa. The woman Marcus had dated before me, the one he'd claimed meant nothing anymore. "What kind of advice?" I asked, though I already knew the answer would hurt. Apparently she told him that men should always be certain about paternity. That it's just being responsible. Brenda paused. Nicole, I think she's the one who planted these doubts. I thanked Brenda and hung up, my mind racing. Marcus's sudden suspicion hadn't appeared from nowhere. Someone had been whispering in his ear, and that someone was a woman who'd never gotten over losing him. You've been talking to Vanessa, I said that evening, trying to keep my voice steady. Marcus looked up from his laptop, surprise flickering across his face before he masked it. She's just a colleague. She was trying to help. Help? I laughed bitterly. Help destroy our marriage? Marcus, she's your ex-girlfriend. Don't you think her advice might be just a little biased? He stood up, defensive now. She's being logical. Something you're apparently incapable of. That night, after he fell asleep, I did something I'd never done before. I checked his phone. The messages were all there, weeks of them, late-night conversations disguised as friendly advice. Vanessa's messages dripped with false concern, each one carefully designed to plant seeds of doubt. You deserve to know the truth. A real man doesn't just accept everything blindly. I just want you to be happy. My hands shook as I scrolled through them, seeing how methodically she'd poisoned him against me. I broke down that night in the bathroom, sobbing into a towel so I wouldn't wake the children. 10 years of marriage, and he believed her over me. I'd given up my career in graphic design to support his construction business. I'd moved away from my family to be closer to his job sites. I'd spent countless nights alone while he worked late, never once doubting his fidelity. And this was how he repaid that trust. When I finally emerged, Marcus was awake, sitting on the edge of the bed. Why are you crying if you've got nothing to hide? He asked coldly. The accusation in his voice shattered something inside me. I was the victim here, yet somehow he'd twisted it to make me the guilty party. Get out, I whispered. He didn't move. This is my house too. Then I'll sleep on the couch. I grabbed my pillow and left, and as I lay there in the darkness, I felt the last threads of love for him begin to fray. Fine, I told him the next morning. I'll do the DNA test. Not because I need to prove anything, but because I'm tired of this. I made the appointment myself, choosing a clinic across town. On the day of the test, I dressed carefully, put on makeup to hide the sleepless nights, and held my children's hands as we walked into the sterile white building. The nurse who took our samples gave me a sympathetic look. She'd probably seen this scenario play out before, wives dragged in to prove their fidelity, marriages hanging by threads. As Tyler's cheek was swabbed, he asked innocently, Mommy, why are we here? Just a health check, sweetheart, I lied, hating myself for it. Marcus sat in the waiting room, not even bothering to comfort the children. As I watched him scroll through his phone, probably texting Vanessa, something inside me shifted. The pain was still there, but beneath it, a cold resolve was forming. Whatever happened next, I was done being a victim. A week later, I returned to the clinic to check on the processing time. As I waited at the reception desk, I overheard 2 lab technicians talking near the back office. That Marcus Bennett case, we've got 2 sets of samples for him. One with his wife and kids, and another one. Different woman's child. My blood ran cold. I moved closer, pretending to read a pamphlet. Yeah, strange setup. The second test is marked confidential. Guess he's checking multiple possibilities. Multiple possibilities. Marcus wasn't just testing our children. He was testing someone else's child too. Vanessa's child. My mind raced as pieces fell into place. The late-night conversations. The defensive attitude. The money that had been disappearing from our account. He wasn't just emotionally involved with his ex. This went deeper than I'd imagined. I left the clinic in a daze, but by the time I reached my car, the fog had cleared. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I started digging that evening while Marcus was out. Bank statements revealed regular transfers to an account I didn't recognize. Small amounts, 500 here, 300 there, adding up to thousands over 6 months. I cross-referenced the dates with his calendar and found they corresponded with his late work nights. Further searching revealed receipts in his email for flowers, dinners at expensive restaurants, gifts I'd never received. He'd been living a double life, and I'd been too trusting to notice. My heartbreak was hardening into something else now, something focused and determined. I created a folder on my laptop titled House Renovation Ideas, knowing Marcus would never look there. Inside, I began documenting everything: screenshots of transfers, forwarded emails, photos of receipts. Every piece of evidence was carefully organized and backed up to a cloud account he didn't know existed. If he wanted proof, I'd give him proof. Just not the kind he expected. Outwardly, I became the perfect wife again. I cooked his favorite meals, smiled when he came home, asked about his day. Marcus seemed relieved by what he thought was my acceptance of the situation. "See," he said one evening. "This wasn't so hard. Once the results come back, everything will be fine." I nodded and poured him more wine, saying nothing about the lawyer's card hidden in my wallet or the second bank account I'd opened that afternoon. He thought I was submitting. He thought I'd forgiven him. Instead, I was building my exit strategy, brick by careful brick. I kept copies of every document related to the house, our vehicles, his business. I photographed our assets, documented our living situation, recorded the children's routines. Everything that might matter in a divorce proceeding was being quietly preserved. At night, while he slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake planning. The woman he thought he knew was disappearing, replaced by someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more strategic. 3 weeks after that terrible morning, Marcus burst into the living room waving papers. "They're mine," he announced, his voice mixed with relief and something else I couldn't identify. "Both kids, 100% mine." I looked up from helping Olivia with her homework. "Of course they are." He stood there, waiting for something. Gratitude? Relief? Instead, I turned back to Olivia's math problems. "That's it?" he demanded. "That's all you have to say?" "What do you want me to say, Marcus? Congratulations on discovering what I already knew? Thank you for doubting me and humiliating our family?" He shifted uncomfortably. I had to be sure. Any man would do the same. "No," I said quietly, meeting his eyes. "Any man who truly loved his wife wouldn't need to." That night marked the end of something. I no longer cried. I no longer felt hurt. Instead, I felt nothing when I looked at him, and that emptiness was somehow more final than any anger could have been. The next morning, while Marcus was in the shower, I carefully removed documents from our home office. Birth certificates, insurance papers, my old portfolio from my design days, everything that belonged to me and the children. I'd rented a safety deposit box the week before, and these papers went straight there. He didn't notice their absence. He never noticed much about what I did anymore. That evening, I watched him text someone, a small smile playing at his lips. Vanessa, undoubtedly. The woman who'd poisoned my marriage was still very much in the picture. But I wasn't angry anymore. Anger required caring, and I was done caring about Marcus Bennett. I was focused now on protecting my children and securing our future. While he thought everything was returning to normal, I was quietly dismantling the life we'd built together, taking what was mine and preparing to walk away from what wasn't. The lawyer's office was small but professional, tucked away on a quiet street downtown. Patricia Hayes reviewed my documentation with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "You've been thorough," she said approvingly. "These transfers, the emotional affair, the public humiliation of demanding DNA tests. We can build a strong case." "What about custody?" I asked, my primary concern. "With evidence of his affair and the emotional damage done to the children? You'll get primary custody easily. Plus, since you gave up your career to support his business growth, we can argue for substantial spousal support." For the first time in weeks, I felt a genuine smile cross my face. Marcus thought he held all the power, thought I was dependent on him and too scared to leave. He had no idea what was coming. "How long will this take?" I asked. We can file whenever you're ready. My advice? Get your finances completely separated first. Then we strike. I left her office feeling lighter than I had in months. Justice was coming, and I was going to make sure it arrived exactly when it would hurt him most. The joint account held $43,000, money we'd saved for renovations. I reviewed the account history and calculated exactly how much I'd contributed over the years. Between my part-time graphic design work and the inheritance from my father, I'd put in $28,000. Legally, with Patricia's guidance, that money was mine to move. I opened a new account at a different bank and transferred my portion. Marcus wouldn't notice for weeks, he rarely checked our savings. But I also did something else. I contacted 3 of Marcus's biggest clients, the ones I'd helped him win by designing their project proposals and marketing materials. I reminded them subtly that I'd been the creative force behind their successful bids. 2 of them asked if I'd be interested in freelance work. I accepted immediately. Within days, I had contracts and income of my own. Financial independence felt like breathing fresh air after being underwater. Marcus still thought I was completely dependent on him, still believed I couldn't survive alone. He was about to learn otherwise. I played the role perfectly. For 2 more weeks, I was the devoted wife, laughing at his jokes, keeping the house immaculate, acting like the DNA results had resolved everything. Marcus relaxed completely, his guard dropping. He started staying out later, barely bothering to hide where he was going. Sometimes he came home smelling of perfume that wasn't mine. I said nothing, just documented the times and dates. The children noticed their father's distance, but I kept them busy with activities and homework, shielding them as much as possible. Is Daddy still mad? Tyler asked one evening. Daddy's just busy with work, sweetheart, I assured him, hating the lie but knowing the full truth would hurt him more. Meanwhile, I was preparing. The new apartment I'd found was perfect, a 3-bedroom place near the children's school with a small office where I could work. I'd already paid the deposit using money from my new account. Everything was falling into place like pieces of a careful puzzle. Marcus thought we were healing. We were actually ending. The voice recorder was tiny, barely visible when I placed it behind the books on Marcus's office shelf. That evening, his friend Kyle came over to watch a football game. I served them snacks, played the perfect hostess, then retreated upstairs with the children. Through the baby monitor I'd strategically placed, I heard everything. So the DNA test came back clean? Kyle asked. Marcus laughed. Yeah, they're mine. Not that it matters much longer anyway. What do you mean? Vanessa's pregnant. We're planning to move in together once I figure out how to handle Nicole. My hands clenched into fists as I listened. She'll probably fall apart. She's completely dependent on me. But I'll make sure she gets something in the divorce. Kyle whistled low. Cold, man. She gave up everything for you. Yeah, well, that was her choice. I'm done playing happy family. That night, I downloaded the recording, made 3 backup copies, and sent one to Patricia. The message I included was simple, he just handed us everything we need. The cracks in Marcus's carefully constructed image started appearing at his workplace. Kyle, apparently uncomfortable with Marcus's plans, mentioned something to another colleague. That colleague mentioned it to his wife, who knew someone who knew me. Within days, whispers were spreading through Marcus's professional circles. The perfect family man wasn't so perfect after all. I heard about it from Brenda, who'd heard it from her husband. People are talking about Marcus at the construction association meetings. Rumor is he's been cheating, might be leaving his family. I allowed myself a small smile. Rumors can be so unreliable. But the damage was spreading. 3 of his smaller clients quietly dropped him, not wanting to be associated with someone whose personal ethics were being questioned. Marcus came home frustrated, complaining about unfair gossip, never suspecting where it had originated. The man who'd humiliated me with public DNA tests was learning what public judgment felt like. And this was just the beginning. "Marcus, I'd like to take you to dinner," I said one Thursday evening. "Just us. My mother can watch the kids." He looked surprised but pleased. "Sure. Where?" "That Italian place downtown. The one where we had our anniversary 3 years ago." The nostalgia factor worked perfectly. He actually smiled at me, probably thinking this meant I'd truly forgiven him. Saturday evening arrived. I dressed carefully in a blue dress he'd always liked, did my makeup, played the part completely. We met at Marino's at 7. He was already seated when I arrived, looking confident in his best suit. But he wasn't alone at the table. Patricia Hayes sat beside him, a thick folder in front of her. Marcus's smile faded. "What's going on?" "This is my attorney," I said calmly, taking the seat across from him. "And that folder contains your divorce papers." His face went white, then red. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious." I pulled out my phone. "Would you like to hear why?" I pressed play. His own voice filled the quiet corner of the restaurant. "She'll probably fall apart. She's completely dependent on me." Marcus lunged for my phone, but Patricia was faster, sliding a document across the table. "Touch her, and we add assault to the filing." "Your choice, Mr. Bennett." He froze, looking between us with dawning horror. The recording continued playing, his words about Vanessa's pregnancy, his plans to leave, his dismissive comments about me clearly audible. 2 nearby tables had stopped eating, watching our drama unfold. "You recorded me?" he hissed. "In our house?" "In my house," I corrected. "The house my grandmother left me, which you've been living in. The house where you planned your affair while I raised your children." Patricia tapped the folder. "These are divorce papers. Mrs. Bennett is filing on grounds of adultery and emotional cruelty. The DNA test demand, your affair with Ms. Phillips, the financial deception, it's all documented here." Marcus's hands shook as he opened the folder. With each page, his face grew paler. "The house, the business contacts, primary custody, you can't take everything." "I'm taking what I built and what I'm entitled to," I said. "You can keep what's yours." The fallout was immediate and devastating. By Monday, Marcus's largest client had cancelled their contract, citing ethical concerns. His business partner requested an emergency meeting to discuss the company's reputation. Vanessa, when confronted by her own husband about the pregnancy, suddenly became unreachable. Marcus tried calling me 17 times that day. I blocked his number after the first voicemail, which was full of threats and pleading in equal measure. Patricia filed a restraining order when he showed up at the house demanding to talk. The police escorted him away while the children were at school, sparing them that scene at least. His mother called, crying, begging me to reconsider. "He made a mistake. Don't destroy him over one mistake." "One mistake?" I repeated quietly. "He systematically destroyed my reputation, doubted his own children, stole from our accounts, and planned to abandon us for another woman. Those aren't mistakes. Those are choices." I hung up before she could respond. The man who'd had all the power, who'd made me feel small and dependent, was learning what powerlessness felt like. 3 months later, I stood in my new apartment watching Olivia and Tyler play in their rooms. Sunlight streamed through windows that overlooked a small park. Our space was modest but clean, bright, and most importantly, peaceful. No more tension at dinner. No more cold silences. No more walking on eggshells around someone who'd stopped loving me long ago. My graphic design business was thriving. The clients I'd helped Marcus win had become my clients, impressed by my work and sympathetic to my situation. Word of mouth brought more projects, and I'd hired an assistant to help manage the workload. But I'd also started something new, a blog called Surviving Betrayal, where I wrote about my experience and offered practical advice for women facing similar situations. Legal steps to take, financial planning, emotional recovery, protecting children through divorce. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from women who'd felt alone in their pain, who needed someone to tell them they could survive this. My story was helping others, and that gave my pain purpose. 7 months after I'd served him divorce papers, Marcus called from his mother's number, knowing I'd blocked his. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Nicole, please. I need to talk to you." His voice was hoarse, defeated. "I have 5 minutes," I said, putting him on speaker. "I lost everything. The business is failing. Vanessa left when she found out I couldn't give her the lifestyle she wanted. I'm living in my mother's basement." He paused. "I made a terrible mistake. The biggest of my life. Can we please try again? I'll do anything." I thought about the woman I'd been 8 months ago, crying at that breakfast table, humiliated by his lack of trust. Then I thought about who I'd become, financially independent, emotionally strong, helping other women find their power. "Marcus, the DNA test proved you were their father. But your actions proved you were never a husband. Never a partner. You were a man who took everything I gave and threw it away. Please," he whispered. "Goodbye, Marcus." I ended the call and blocked his mother's number too. That chapter was closed, and I wasn't looking back. My blog post titled, "When He Demanded Proof, My DNA Test Story," went viral 3 months later. 50,000 shares in the first week. Media outlets requested interviews. A publisher reached out about turning my experience into a book. But the most meaningful response came from the messages, hundreds of them, from women who'd faced similar betrayals and felt alone. "You gave me courage to leave. I documented everything like you did. Thank you. My lawyer loved your list of evidence to gather." I was invited to speak at a women's empowerment conference. Standing on that stage, looking out at 200 faces, I shared my story. Not with bitterness, but with the hard-won wisdom of someone who'd survived and thrived. The DNA test wasn't about biology, I told them. It was about control, about making me prove my worth. But I'd already proven my worth through 10 years of sacrifice. I just needed to prove it to myself. The standing ovation brought tears to my eyes, but they were good tears this time. 1 year after that terrible morning, I drove past our old house with Olivia and Tyler in the back seat. The for sale sign in the yard showed price reduced stamped across it. The lawn was overgrown, the paint fading. Marcus couldn't afford to keep it after I'd taken what was legally mine. "Mommy, was that our old house?" Tyler asked. "It was, sweetheart. But we have a much better home now, don't we?" "I like our new place better," Olivia chimed in. "It's happy there." Out of the mouths of children. Our new apartment, my growing business, the peace we'd found, it was all better than the life we'd left behind. That night, after tucking the kids into bed, I sat at my desk and wrote in my journal, "Sometimes the test isn't about DNA. It's about loyalty, trust, and knowing your worth." Marcus tested me that morning with those kits. He wanted proof I was faithful. Instead, he proved he wasn't worthy of my faithfulness. And in losing him, I found something better. I found myself. I closed the journal, turned off the light, and went to bed. Tomorrow I had 3 client meetings, a podcast interview, and dinner with my children. My life was full, my heart was healing, and for the first time in years, I was genuinely happy. The DNA test had been meant to destroy me. Instead, it had set me free.